Picture this, a boy from a middle-class neighborhood in Medellin, Colombia, full of big dreams and restless energy. He starts as a petty thief, a hustler on the street corners, selling fake diplomas and stolen tombstones. His name is Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, and there is nothing about his early life that suggests he will become a king whose name will be whispered with a mixture of terror and all across the globe. Yet, this is the man who would rise to become not just a criminal, but a force of nature, a dark architect who built an empire of cocaine and blood that challenged nations and rewrote the rules of power. His is a story of impossible, obscene wealth, of a philosophy of violence so absolute it became a form of governance, and of a final, desperate run that ended on a rooftop in his own city. This is the path of Pablo Escobar, a journey that shows us how greed, when left unchecked, does not just corrupt a man, it can corrupt the very soil of a country. The engine of his rise was a simple, white powder. Pablo Escobar saw the American appetite for cocaine not as a vice, but as a historic opportunity. He was among the first to understand the logistics, to build the pipelines from the coca fields of Peru and Bolivia, through the jungles and labs of Colombia, and into the veins of Miami and Los Angeles. The money that came back was not mere cash, it was a tidal wave of physical currency. The Medellin Cartel, under his leadership, was earning so much tens of millions of dollars every single day that they faced a problem no business school could teach: how to hide a flood. This led to one of the most bizarre and telling chapters of his empire, the problem of storage. Warehouse ceilings would collapse under the weight of stacked bills. Billions were buried in fields, sealed in PVC pipes. But Escobar's preferred method was one of brute force engineering. He constructed immense, reinforced underground vaults beneath his sprawling ranches, haciendas like the famed Naples. These were not simple holes in the ground, they were concrete bunkers lined with steel, accessible only through hidden hydraulic doors triggered by secret levers. Walls of his mansions would swing open to reveal safes embedded in the very bones of the house. His wealth was not invested, it was interred, buried like a dragon's hoard, a physical manifestation of his paranoia and his inability to ever truly enjoy the fruits of his labor. With this wealth came a power so corrosive it ate away at the foundations of Colombian society. Escobar operated on a chillingly simple principle: plata o plomo. Silver or lead, a bribe or a bullet, there was no third option. Judges, police colonels, cabinet ministers, and presidential candidates were all presented with this choice. He bought elections, funded campaigns, and stacked the Congress with his own men. When bribery did not work, assassination did. He turned violence into a public spectacle, a tool of communication. Car bombs would rip through city streets. Hitmen on motorcycles would spray entire cafes with gunfire. His campaign of terror reached its horrifying peak with the bombing of an Avianca passenger jet, an attempt to kill a presidential candidate that instead slaughtered 110 innocent civilians. He declared war on the state itself, and for a long, terrifying period, it was a war the state was losing. In the neighborhoods of Medellin, he built a perverse populism funding soccer fields, housing projects, and community centers, becoming a modern-day Robin Hood who distributed refrigerators and televisions even as his cartel drowned the world in addiction and his assassins painted the city red. The turning point came when the war became international. The sheer scale of his violence and the river of cocaine flooding into the United States made him not just Colombia's problem, but America's public enemy number one. A historic partnership was formed. The Colombian government, under immense pressure and with its back against the wall, agreed to work with American agencies like the D and the CIA. This was no longer a police action, it was a military manhunt. The Americans brought technology, sophisticated tracking equipment, satellite surveillance, intelligence networks that the Colombians lacked. Together, they formed an elite, U.S.-trained police unit known as the Search Bloc, whose sole mission was to find and kill Pablo Escobar. The net began to tighten. His properties were seized one by one. His closest allies were captured or killed. The pressure transformed him from a kingpin into a fugitive, constantly on the move, a ghost in his own city. The man who once controlled presidents was now reduced to hiding in safe houses, listening for the sound of helicopters, his world shrinking with every passing day. The end came not in a dramatic gunfight with an army, but in a desperate scramble over the rooftops of a middle-class neighborhood called Los Olivos. On December 2, 1993, tracked down by a combination of high-tech surveillance and old-fashioned detective work, Escobar tried to flee across the terracotta tiles. Cornered by the search block, a shootout erupted. The official story states that he was shot and killed by Colombian forces. But the circumstances a single, precise gunshot wound to the ear have fueled endless speculation that he may have taken his own life to avoid capture. In that moment, on that sunny Medellin rooftop, the myth was punctured. The king was dead. His empire, already fractured, began to crumble into rival factions. The city and the nation exhaled a breath they had been holding for a decade. But the death of Pablo Escobar was not the end of the story. It was merely the closing of one bloody chapter and the opening of another, quieter mystery, the mystery of the missing money. It is estimated that over his career, Escobar smuggled and earned well over $30 billion. Authorities recovered only a fraction, the rest, billions upon billions, simply vanished. To this day, treasure hunters, former cartel members, and government agents search for it. They use ground-penetrating radar over his old ranches, follow cryptic maps, and dive into the lakes where it is said he dumped encrypted suitcases of cash. Every few years, there is a discovery, a few $1 million unearthed from a farm, a stash found behind a false wall. Each find is a ghostly echo of his empire, a reminder that his wealth is still out there, seeping into the landscape, a permanent poison in the Colombian soil. His story, therefore, does not live on just in books and documentaries. It lives on in the literal hunt for his buried legacy, a dark lottery that continues to tempt and corrupt. The rise and fall of Pablo Escobar is more than a crime saga. It is a cautionary tale of the 20th century. It shows us how one man's limitless ambition, fueled by a product that fed a hemisphere's addiction, can bend the institutions of justice to a breaking point. It demonstrates how violence, when applied with sufficient ruthlessness and capital, can become a form of political speech. But ultimately, it is a story of isolation. Escobar built vaults to hide his money and fortresses to hide himself, but he could never build a place safe enough from the consequences of his own actions. He died alone on a roof, separated from the people he claimed to champion and hunted by the country he sought to control. His legacy is a nation still healing, families still grieving, and a world still wrestling with the demons he so efficiently exploited. He was a king of shadows, and in the end, it was the relentless searching light of justice and vengeance that found him, proving that no empire, no matter how wealthy or terrifying, can forever remain hidden from the sun.